For somebody who's watching this on a replay, if this is your first time to my channel, my name is Dion. My goal is to help the average individual reach financial freedom in less than 10 years, even if you're not starting from the best position, which I wasn't, and I did, and you will. But tonight, before I get into the questions, I want to cover what financial freedom is. What is the FIRE movement, and why do so many people talk about it? I have a couple of other subjects to cover towards the end too, on myths about the FIRE movement and some mistakes that people make along the way. Most people think that the FIRE community, financial independence, retire early, is about some things like being frugal, which it's not. I'm not frugal. And it's about retiring early, which it's not for me. I don't plan on retiring late, let alone early. For me, financial independence comes from understanding money. And in the beginning, it's really understanding the first lesson in Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The rich don't work for money. If you have to work for money, if you have to sell your life 1 hour at a time, then you are not financially free. Even if you're making a significant amount of money, if you still have to work for that money, you are not free. So understanding that the rich don't work for money is the first step. Because learning how we make money is how you differentiate. There's three main categories, at least according to the IRS. Earned income, where you work a job. Capital gains income, where you profit from selling assets. And they call it passive income, but passive income is basically money that comes in from assets like rental income or dividends. They're all taxed very differently. The person who's working for money is taxed the most. Most people think that, especially if you watch the memes that say tax the rich, that the more money you make, the more you should be taxed. And the way the government looks at it is the government needs people to make businesses, be innovative, and create things. And we need people to buy properties, make rentals, and rent out affordable housing. So it's not a tax penalty system. The more money you make, the more you're taxed is not how it works. The way you make your money is how they figure out the tax. Earned income, and it's a graduated system. So if you make less than a certain amount, you're taxed at 1%. As you make more, that bracket of money is taxed more. And the more you make, up to the maximum, it increases. Capital gains, or how a business makes money, is taxed generally at a lower percentage rate. And then passive income is taxed at the least, at the smallest amount. And the real order of operations is somebody who's working a job pays taxes, gets their money, spends what's left. So FICA, whoever that is, right, takes the money out of your check before you get paid. Social Security before you get paid. Rich people, the people who don't work for money, get their money, spend their money or invest their money, and then pay taxes on what's left. So it's literally the opposite. And so when you factor in things like write-offs and depreciation, there are people who, with my job now running a CDL school, I have a six-figure income when we have a good year because I bonus based on the company, right? I'm taxed at a pretty high percent for that. I have six-figure rental profit and I'm taxed zero. Haven't in 10 years paid a penny in rental income tax because of things like write-offs and depreciation. So how we earn our money is important. Part of it is because if you have a job, you are selling your life 1 hour at a time to earn that money, and you're going to be taxed a lot. So when you factor in not selling your life and not paying taxes, financial freedom means you have money coming in from a source other than your job that is more than what it costs you to live. And some people will say things like, I need to replace my W-2 income, forgetting that W-2 income is taxed at the highest rate. You're usually saving for retirement there, paying Social Security. You have state tax coming out. You have all of these things coming out that aren't going to be coming out when you're financially free, being paid from things other than your job. If you're investing in real estate, and I'm going to cover the three main ways that people reach financial freedom. There are thousands, but there are three main categories. If you have that income coming in a way where you can take advantage of legal tax write-offs and legal things like depreciation. And I love it when I bring up depreciation sometimes in the Facebook groups or in the BiggerPockets forums. Some people will say, Well, depreciation doesn't mean you're paying taxes. It means you're delaying taxes. Those taxes still exist. Right. But remember, almost everybody who works in Congress who makes the laws owns property. It's weird how the laws benefit the people who work in Congress, right? And we have that incentive program to want to help people, to encourage them to want to invest. So if you delay things with depreciation, you also have a 1031 exchange. So if you ever sell, instead of paying that depreciation recapture, you can again delay those taxes into a like asset of greater value. And then if you don't sell that, or you continue to 1031 until you die, there's a stepped up tax system where depreciation might be reset for your people who inherit it. And then there's tax structures like having a trust where there's another way to avoid that tax. So figuring out how we make our money, if we're earning it as earned income, capital gains, or passive income, also is explained in Robert Kiyosaki's book, The Cash Flow Quadrant. Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time, Matt, the Lumberjack Landlord, and myself did a video recently on the cash flow quadrant, basically showing that an employee pays 40% in taxes. A self-employed person, like a doctor or a really small business owner where they're still doing the work themselves, pays about 60% in taxes because you pay the employee's portion and the employer's portion. I run a truck driving school where we have several employers, and the company pays an employer's side of taxes. What the employee side sees is just one aspect to that. A business pays about 20%. Capital gains is around 20%. But again, remember, they get to use things like write-offs and depreciation. There are assets in a business that you get to depreciate. And then an investor generally pays, whenever possible, zero in taxes. And people say things like, Elon Musk didn't pay any income tax. You're right. He didn't have a salary. He did not have income, so he didn't pay any income tax. But he did generate $11 billion in taxes for the government. So there are reasons why the government encourages companies to grow. So the mental shift on figuring out how to make your money is the first step to financial freedom. Understanding that if your job is your only source of income, you are at the biggest risk, because one of the main reasons why I got into financial freedom is I got tired of my sources of income being taken away due to things outside of my control. After Desert Storm, the Marine Corps downsized. And in 2008, when the recession hit, I was a police officer, and municipalities get their money from taxes. When there's no taxes coming in, police department shrinks. So I got laid off. It's like people said, well, there's a recession going on, so there's no more crime. We don't need cops anymore. And I got laid off at the same time as a bunch of qualified officers. I thought I landed on my feet right after getting out of the police department. I landed a job with a company called Oak Harbor Freight Lines, making about between $110,000 and $115,000 a year driving a local truck. They went on strike. Great benefits, great pay, home every day, never spent the night away from home. And the driver said, that's not good enough. We want more. So they went on strike. So I lost that, again, outside of my control. So I looked at investing to reach financial freedom so that I had income that didn't rely on me selling my life 1 hour at a time. When it comes to reaching financial freedom, a lot of times investing isn't the first step. The first step is learning how to save. If you can't save money when you're not making a lot, you're not going to magically start saving money when you make more. A lot of people have that mistaken concept of, if I won $100,000 or if I started making twice as much money, I'd start saving. Life costs money, and the more you make, the more you spend. It's really hard to avoid life creep unless you figure out how to save it. And if you can save a small amount as your income grows, it's a lot easier to start saving or to save more. So sometimes I ask friends, what is your savings rate? And they don't know because they've never thought about it before. They get confused when I say my goal, when I first started, my goal for a savings rate was a minimum of 100%. I wanted a 100% savings rate, because if you can't save 100% of the money that you're making from your job, then you still need that job and you are not financially free. Financial freedom comes from being able to work and being able to save every single penny that comes in from that job. And like, you don't need it because you could save it for investing or for the future. So that was my starting goal. So when I ask friends and they don't know theirs, I say, so then you don't have one? And they say, no. And I said, well, let's find one. And they said, well, I don't make enough money to start saving. I said, okay, so no matter what you're making, do you think it's possible for you to take $1, just an actual piece of paper, cash, $1, and put it in a drawer and never touch it again? Could you do that? even on minimum wage, at some point, people would have $1 to set aside. So now they have a number to start from. Now, based on what you make and what your expenses are, can you make it $5 or 10? Or can you increase that to an actual number that makes sense? And for me, the biggest step towards adding a savings rate was figuring out how to do house hacking. Because a lot of people think if I eliminate Starbucks or if I don't eat out and I meal prep at home, then I can get closer to this financial freedom. So if you were spending $5 a day on coffee, it's whatever you're getting at Starbucks, and let's say that includes the tip. So it's only like a $3 drink, and then you do the tip. 30 days in a month, pretty much, times $5. That's how much you're going to save in a month. If you can figure out house hacking and reduce or eliminate your housing costs, just by moving from an apartment into a duplex, I reduced my monthly expenses by $1,200 a month. Didn't have to give up anything. Just lived in a different spot. So focusing on larger expenses makes it easier to reach financial freedom instead of cutting out all of the small things. So one of the things I cover later is one of the biggest myths about financial freedom is that you have to be frugal. And I am by no means frugal. I drive an F-250 jacked up truck with every extra you can imagine, massaging seats, heated seats, everything. Traded in a Corvette for that. I eat out all the time. I actually, behind the scenes info, raised 3 kids as a single dad. Cooked for them. They were all picky. Each one had a different palate. And there was 10 years between the oldest and the youngest. So that means 28 years of being a parent. I will never cook again in my life. I will eat out all the time. And in some ways, it's actually cheaper. I watch movies. When COVID's not a thing, I go out to the theater. I spend at least a month a year in Colombia or Thailand. I'm upping that to 3 months next year. So if the people who own the company I work at are watching, enjoy a 3-month vacation with me next year. Frugal is not the way to financial freedom. It helps to control life creep. But if you take charge of the bigger expenses, then it is a lot easier to reach financial freedom than focusing on those small things. When you're learning how to save, before you invest, we need to look at your finances, because I started with a lot of bad debt. If you're new to my channel, this will be news to you. I started out with $89,000 in bad debt in my name that I did not know about until the divorce. When we filed for divorce, I found out about $89,000. It was actually several $100,000 in bad debt. So here's a quick tip for you. When I found out about the debt, I was contacting the debtor saying, I didn't know about this debt. How do I pay it? Because I was a police officer when I found out about it. And police officers can't file bankruptcy because that means you're more likely to take a bribe, and it could be a career killer. So my ex filed bankruptcy, and all of that debt, because I live in a community property state, was already mine anyways, but it became more mine. I was on the phone with the lender, and I was just trying to figure out how to pay it. And he said, I see that your spouse filed for bankruptcy. Do you plan on doing that as well? And before I could answer, he said, because we would take, it was like 20, 25 or 30% of the total value. And a light bulb came on in my head. I was like, you'll take less than I owe you? And he said, yeah, if it'll stop you from going through a bankruptcy. So I called every single creditor, talked to them, and then all of those hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, which is fun to say out loud, got reduced to $89,000. That was what I ended up having to take care of. I looked at that $89,000 in debt. So I wanted to invest, I wanted to house hack, and I wanted to get rid of the bad debt, because bad debt is the worst thing for financial freedom. If the interest rate on the debt was above 6%, I focused and paid that off first while saving for the down payment of my first house hack. So I was 50-50. 50% of my savings was going towards saving for an investment. 50% was going to paying off any debt over 6%. I did not focus on paying any debt below 6%, just made the minimum payment so that it wouldn't fall behind until I got into house hacking. Once I reduced my housing, then it was a lot easier to focus and pay off that debt. So if you flash forward 10 years, bad debt free, nothing. I've never carried a balance on a credit card since I've gotten rid of them. Net worth over 2 million. So if I sold absolutely everything, paid agent fees and taxes, I would walk away right now with about 2.145 million, according to the spreadsheet, being generous on the side of expenses. And it took 10 years to get there. So my goal is to share how I got here with as many people as possible. Work is optional. And net worth, as big as it sounds when I just said it, is a number that doesn't matter. A lot of times I ask people, what is financial freedom? And they'll say, when I don't have to work. Right, you don't have to work. And I'll say, so what's your freedom number? Because that's the next step, figuring out your freedom number. A lot of people say, my freedom number is $1 million. $5 million, $10 million. And to me, they're talking net worth, which is a fictitious number that really doesn't mean anything, because how many of us are actually going to sell absolutely everything we know just to walk away with cash? Freedom number is a monthly amount of money that comes in from a source other than you selling your life 1 hour at a time. And that amount of money being more than what it costs you to live. You want a buffer in there to handle those random expenses. So figuring out your freedom number, it's kind of hard to project and do like a zero-base budget and look at forward and say, I think I'll spend this on entertainment. I think I'll spend this on clothes. I think. That's not how it works. Look at your last year. You actually have the data. What are you paying for rent? What are you paying for entertainment? What are you paying for clothes? Food. Everything that you've been doing for the last year is what it costs you to live. Add a buffer to that, and that's your freedom number. For most of us, it can be anywhere from $2,500 a month to $5,000 a month to $10,000 a month, depending on the size of your family, the type of house you want to live in. So like I said, the number, your freedom number, isn't a total amount of money. It's a monthly cash flow. A lot of people say cash is king, and they're missing a word. Cash flow is king. Money coming in that you don't have to work for. And then there's the three main ways that people reach financial freedom. If you're on my channel, I can probably guess which one you're interested in, although there are three. I have started and ended businesses. So more behind the scenes information. Between getting out of the Marine Corps and going into law enforcement, I started a furniture delivery company. I was a truck driver, had a CDL, bought a truck, had 2 trucks, had 5 employees, was delivering furniture for a store that closed down called Levitt's, went to a store called the Bon Marché. Now it's the Bon Macy's, and now it's just Macy's. So I was delivering furniture. But my spouse, just before the divorce, emptied out the wages account and the taxes account. So I had to close that business down. Good times. So starting and growing a business is one aspect of one path to reaching financial freedom. The goal with starting and running a business should be to grow it with systems to where someone else can run it. So you're not involved in the actual day-to-day. My goal was to get enough people employed in those trucks where I didn't have to go out and carry 300-pound couches up 3 flights of stairs, right? I wanted to make money based on providing jobs for the people working in my trucks. Yeah, those are good memories. So that's first path. Grow a business large enough to where there are systems in place for someone else to run the day-to-day. The second path to financial freedom is investing in the stock market. A lot of people are familiar with the Trinity study that went on, where they studied a certain number of years and they projected that if you save up a certain amount in a well-diversified stock portfolio, that you can withdraw 4% of that portfolio, and then it was with some accuracy of like 99% or 98%, that money would last 25 years. To get to the point where 25 or to where 4% would support your lifestyle, you were supposed to invest 25 times your annual expenses. So there's math behind this. And I could butcher this. You can correct me if you want, because this is not the path that I chose. I looked into this path, but there are a few reasons why I didn't pick this. The idea was, over 100 years, the average annual return on a diversified stock portfolio, so not the people who pick certain stocks and day traders or anything like that, but the people who just diversify in index funds, you were going to get an average of a 10% return year on year. Some years were really good, some years not so much. So if you withdrew 4% and you were getting an annual expected return of 10% over a long term averaged out, that left enough money to pay taxes on your gains and to keep up with inflation, because the Fed's goal is a 2% inflation rate every year. The federal government wants inflation because they are in a lot of debt. The government right now is in about $29 trillion worth of debt. And whenever there's inflation, it's easier to pay off debt. So I did not invest in stocks, because when it comes to investing, here's the advice that I try to give to as many people as I can. Invest in what excites you. We are more likely to stick to a plan we are emotionally invested in. That does not mean invest based on emotion. Like, which stock color do you like the best? That's what you buy. No. If you're excited about owning ETFs or Bitcoin or a rental, and it gets your heart going, you're more likely to stick to that plan, because things go wrong. There are dips, tenant problems, crypto corrections, stocks change, all of these things that are going to be hard to deal with. And if you're not excited about that investing category, you might stop investing. Because remember, when you reach financial freedom, this is a really cool thing. I reached financial freedom in 2018. So it took me from 2010 to 2018, about 8 years. My worst case scenario, if I lost everything, is that I have to go back to work. I still work a job I love, but I don't have to. So my worst case scenario is pretty much most people's every day. So once you reach financial freedom, I'll talk in a little bit about the motivation to get you there and what you do once you get there. So starting and growing a business, investing in stocks and using the 4% rule. And there are all kinds of studies on how the 4% rule might be changing based on whatever's going on with the stock market. And it might be the 3% or 3.5%, whatever works for you. And then crypto is a whole new thing. But the thing that I don't like about stocks and crypto is that they don't generate cash flow without selling off part of the asset. In stocks, you do have dividends. And the dividend return is usually, from what I've seen, 2 to 7%. That is then taxed. So I'm going to be making a video on why real estate and not stocks, but not today. But I am talking about why I chose real estate. If I had gone the stock route and I needed to save up money to get to the 4% rule to reach the financial freedom I have now, I would have still needed to work for another probably 15 or 20 years to save up that amount of money, because the return on real estate for me was significantly more just on the cash flow aspect. So after investing in stocks, this is the method that I chose to reach financial freedom. It's what most of my content is about. It is buy and hold rental properties. I used house hacking to enhance my strategy and speed things up, but it's not a requirement. A lot of the people that I work with have never house hacked. And there are different versions of house hacking, and I've got a couple of videos on those too. But investing in buy and hold rental properties, where I buy a rental property where the expected cash on cash return, and I say expected because I have 16 rental units, and right now, as an average, my cash on cash return is twice what my goal is. My goal for the first year of owning a rental is to get a 10% cash on cash return. So if I invest $100,000 every year, that property should make me $10,000. Very simple math. After taxes, because remember, depreciation and write-offs means that this is money. I haven't paid any income tax on this rental profit for over 10 years legally. And the really cool thing with this cash flow that has bought my financial freedom is it's just the first aspect. With properties, we also have appreciation. Since I'm using leverage, we gain appreciation on 4 times what we invest. If you put down 25%, $25,000 on a $100,000 property, you're controlling a $100,000 property. Most of my down payments were 20%, so I'm gaining 5 times appreciation, but I say 4 because a lot of small multifamily investors are putting 25% down. That's not even counted in my financial freedom. That's just like gravy, icing on the cake. And then every month there's principal pay down, and there is leverage with stocks. So to be fair, there is leverage with stocks, but it's called margin and it can be called. With rental properties, I'm using 30-year fixed rate debt that can't be called. No matter what happens, that is the debt. And as inflation happens, remember I said earlier, it's easier to pay off debt in the future because the dollar has less value. So every month, my tenants are putting, right now it's probably right at about $3,000 a month, paying down the mortgages, principal pay down portion of my mortgages. That is like a savings account that grows by $3,000 a month without me having to actively put a penny in it. And then tax benefits. I'm not paying taxes on any of this income. So those are the 3 main ways to reach financial freedom. Like I said, there are thousands or hundreds of different ways to reach it, but the main ones is grow a business, invest in stocks, or invest in real estate. And I think stocks and crypto kind of fall into the same category because it's investing in something that you're hoping will go up in value. And you don't want to get caught living on hopium. So we understand what financial freedom is. Financial freedom is when more money is coming in than it costs you to live with a buffer, and you don't have to sell your life 1 hour at a time to do that.